G'day, legends, and welcome to the Chinwag. I'm your host, Jared. We've had some technical difficulties with Willie's internet, thinking it can give him a week off in the off season. So, we're just starting a little bit late. So, apologies for anyone who was sitting there waiting. Dan's joining me tonight. So, first things first, Dan, you're in Sydney for everyone who doesn't already know that. Have you seen Benji Siegrist at all yet?
Yeah, look, I've been on roving Benji Siegrist detail for the Celtic Down Under podcast this week. He's been hard to miss. It's rare that we get such a big celebrity in Sydney. He had his appearance on the morning show. I mean, we've got our third choice goalkeeper getting his engagement announced on national television in a different country. Like, it's just huge here in Sydney. It's fair to say Sydney's got Siegrist fever, and what more could you ask for? It's one of the true. So, I often say Messi, Ronaldo, Siegrist. It's probably the big three, and to have him here, it's been electric. Now, to be honest, I've totally missed a lot of it. I saw someone on Twitter mention his engagement, and I was like, "Oh, that's right. He's got an Aussie bird, doesn't he?" And he's probably going to sign for one of the three Sydney A-League clubs by the sound of it.
Yep, looks like it's he's working his ticket while he's down here, and he's working something else as well. So there you go. He's happy days to the guy. Congratulations. And I was gonna say never a truer word said when you said it was Messi, Ronaldo, and Siegrist. Like, that's the big three. Has to be. So yeah, well, there's a second. We'll add Willie and hope his internet can keep up. How you going, Willie?
I'm all right, guys. How are you?
Better now.
Yeah, I'm on the wife's laptop. I left my laptop at work, so I've got a few technical issues with it today. So I'll just have to grin and bear it for now and see how we get on.
You'll be right, mate. Thanks for working it out and jumping on all the way from New Zealand. We're just asking Dan, has he seen Benji Siegrist? Because, big time Benji, third string goalkeeper getting his engagement announced on national TV over here. So we're just having a bit of a chuckle on that. Ridiculous, isn't it? How you been, Willie?
I've been all right. Yeah, just been really busy with work. I've finished one project and moved into another one, which is already behind schedule. So it's been absolutely flat out for me.
You got to love it. So we'll give you a bit of a break from the work then, and we'll talk some rubbish. So with the off-season Chinwag shows, we just jump on here and we have a bit of a chat about a few random topics. If we go for half an hour, I'll be great. If we go for an hour, great. That is what it is. We'll just get on here and have a bit of a chuckle there. So we'll start off with some comments here. So Michael, hail, mate. I did this one before you, Willie, just to cover things off. Just thought I'd bring that on the screen for you. And then we've got Andrew Galea about Siegrist. Will he get a game in the A-League? He will at one of the Sydney clubs. So let's be honest. You got Curto at MacArthur is probably the most set in his ways at his club because he's got a couple of years on his deal. You've got old mate the Grey Wiggle at the Smurfs, at your mob, and Dan. And then we've got, I think it's Lawrence Thomas out at Western Sydney. So yeah, no matter which club he goes to, there's someone there. But I think he'd be able to take this position off pretty much all of them. So yeah, it'd be all right for him.
Yeah, especially if he's willing to negotiate on a contract to move down here for the lifestyle and the misses. I think he'll be fine. I'd probably take him at Sydney the more I think about it. As much as I love Andrew Redmayne, 35. Looked a little slower last year. I see Andrew saying he won't shift Thomas, but I think you've got to remember that Lawrence Thomas has played for two of the worst clubs in the league in Melbourne Victory and Western Sydney Wanderers. So it's just pure scum, and we'll leave it at that.
That's great. There we go. So John Clemens is saying, Siegrist's fiancée is prepared to move to Europe. She can do a podcast from anywhere. Yeah, I get that. But will she pick up the TV work that she wants? Who knows? But we'll see what happens. That's the thing there. Andrew's saying, yeah, Sydney FC is the only option for him out here. that's where he'll end up, I reckon. So, yeah. And then we got another comment here. What about Tilio? We'll discuss that a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, there's conflicting reports. Some reports down here in Melbourne are saying that Tilio is going to be back at Melbourne City again soon. Others are saying that he's going to be back over with Celtic for the start of pre-season. So who knows? Watch your space, I suppose, and see what happens. But yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later on. So, episode name: The grass isn't always greener. So we're going to start off with something that happened. I heard about this morning. Myself and Willie's just dropped out again. So rumours are floating around about Carl Starfelt wanting a return to Celtic. Dan, would you take him back?
For the right price, yeah. If he wanted to come back for what we were paying him, or there was a workable option, absolutely. I know he was the guy that copped a lot of criticism next to CCV for a period of time there, but I think we realised fairly early on this season how much we missed him and how big the drop off was when we were, going to Ibrox with Naroshki and Lagerbielka and Scales and those sort of guys. So yeah, look, I'm not always one for looking backwards. I think press forward. There's plenty of centre backs in the world, but I'd probably take Carl back. It seems like he hasn't settled in Spain. I was reading he was living in a hotel at one point because the house he was in had mold problems, and it sounds like it's just been a really uncomfortable experience for him, and it must be hard to go from that when you and your family are miserable to playing good, consistent football. So if he's not settled and he wants to come back to Scotland, I'm sure the places are waterproof, but it's probably a little more rainy than Spain. But yeah, of course, I'd take him back in a heartbeat for sure.
Yeah, for me, I look at it and it's the same. If he wants to come back, perfect, happy days. Basically, we're talking about before he moved on, the plan was keep CCV and Starfelt together as your centre back pairing. Naroski is the third guy challenging those two, and then you wanted to just have your other guys underneath. Now Scales has stepped up, so if Starfelt comes in to play left with Carter Vickers, Naroski and Scales are backing those two up. I think our centre back rotation is pretty strong there. Lagerbielke moves out, so the guy we signed for his replacement came in for a year, leaves. There you go. It's all hunky-dory. We're good to go. So, yeah, I'm not really big on once a player leaves the club coming back, but we've done it a few times with guys like Emilio Izagiri, and then there's also the rumblings of a Kieran Tierney wanting a return too. Now, the only reason I'm throwing that one in there is because I've got another question for you, Dan. Would the return, say if KT did sign with us, I know wages, okay? I know everyone's going to be in the comment, wages, injuries, all this sort of stuff, right? But say if he did want to come home and we managed to get Starfelt and KT, would the return of these two prodigal sons fix our issues at the back heading into next season?
On paper, yes. Concerns over KT staying fit. Not even that. It does feel. It feels like a lazy comment from me, so I kind of want to walk it back a little bit because I know he's played a lot more football over the last few years than I think you remember. I think he's averaging over 30 games. I can't see it happening. I know I was listening to Axom and they were talking about, well, look, you could agree a reasonable wage with him that sort of fit within the club's wage structure and, offset that with a big signing bonus or something. But that's still relying on a club and a board that's, run by guys like Peter Lawwell to pay big money to bring players back rather than just sell them on. And I don't think that's just not realistic from where we sit. That's, fanciful thinking. So, no, look, I think KT still, he did say, he's always wanted to come back. And I even think he said at one point he wanted to come back before he was, over the hill so he could still contribute. But I just can't see it happening. In all honesty, I think it's more likely that we go into the season with Greg Taylor at left back and hopefully someone behind him. I know we spoke a lot about Mitchell Frame last year. Alexandro Bernabei is still a Celtic player, which is, I think I keep forgetting. So, but I mean, theoretically, a left-sided pairing of Starfelt and Tierney would be a huge improvement on Scales Taylor. But do I think it's going to happen? No. Starfelt seems in the more realistic game. I know Vigo were poor last year, but as I said, I think there was a lot going on for him. So I can see that happening. I think KT is still good enough and got enough profile to attract some offers around Europe. I can't see him come back to Scotland at this point.
Yep. So that's pretty much how I feel about it as well. So I'll just bring up some comments about the Starfelt thing. So Andrew's saying not sure Rodgers would have him. Apparently he's already having talks with Rodgers from what we're hearing. John Clements is saying Starfelt coming back is a no-brainer. He has his faults, but complements CCV well, winning every ball in the air. That's got to remember that centre-back pairing of CCV and Starfelt has never been beaten in the Scottish Premiership together. So that is a quality back pairing. The one thing is, and Andrew's saying here, Starfelt copped it from our support, and that all coming from Hugh Keevans above all else. But there's always some Celtic centre back copping and absolute hiding in the media and from the support. As McLaughlin's saying, there's always a scapegoat. And then it was Boyata before Starfelt. Between Boyata and Starfelt, it was Bolingoli.
Jeffrey Ambrose at one point there as well.
Ambrose, yep. And so it continues.
There's always one. And look, this year it was a mix of Taylor and Scales for the most part, I felt. Someone's always going to be the guy under the hammer, right?
Yep. 100%. So, yeah, there's going to be plenty of options there. But for me, if they were to if they were both to come in, I'd be happy with that. Like, the only thing I didn't like about Starfelt's game was how clunky he was moving the ball, because he's naturally right-footed, moving it from right to left to pass to the wing. But you can live with that. And I actually think that wouldn't be as obvious a problem in a Rodgers system where we reverse the ball, and we hold on to possession as much as it would be. It's not like we're up pressing. And then the ball comes in and he's just got to clear it quickly. And he's looking for his left back, and his left back's inverted in the midfield, so he's got no one to pass to. I don't think that would be as much of an issue. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Michael Ross is saying, I like Starfelt. Clicked on the wrong one there. I like Starfelt, never understood the criticism. And then there's a few comments here about Jacinta saying that if Starfelt comes back, does that mean Jacinta's coming back for the ladies' team as well? Then another one's like, has Starfelt fell out with his bird? And then another one's like, what about Starfelt's woman? She was good. Who knows what's going on there?
Yeah, I was a fan.
I have to go get my New ID magazine or whatever it is and try and figure out what's going on. If, footballers in Europe dating Australian chicks is in the media, we'll probably be able to pick it up somewhere from there soon.
It's big news. Although, as I said, Siegrist is sort of in that big three, so he probably attracts a bigger market share than Carl Starfelt. But
yep. So what we'll do is just changing gears a little minute here. We're just going to go through, because with the transfer windows now open, we've spoken about players in the first team squad previously, who we think will stay, who should be sold. We've done that to death. Every Celtic podcast has done that to death. So what we want to do is we want to look at the players that we have at Celtic who were on loan last season and just have a discuss. We'll just go through the players and we'll be like, do we see them having a long-term future at Celtic, yes or no? And if one of us says yes, it'll be why. And what I mean long-term is, okay, maybe it's someone that needs to go on loan for a couple more seasons to break in. Maybe it's someone who could be someone to come in and give us that squad depth or the European quota that we need. There could be reasons for it. So we'll have a bit of a chat just about the guys who are on loan above all else, and go from there. So keep the comments piling in and give us your opinions on the players, and we'll bring them up at the end once we've gone through it all as well. So we'll start off with we had Toby Oluwayemi as goalkeeper. What are your thoughts there, Dan?
Still young, lots of time on his side. Goalkeeper, he's only 20, 21. I don't know. He had an injury interrupted season. He was one of two guys, along with Matthew Anderson, that went over to Admira Wacker in the Austrian second division. So there was probably not enough opportunity for him to stake a claim. I know his contract was up at the end of this season, so I'm not sure whether they've offered him a new deal or not. If he does, I think he's either going to be a third keeper. He's got a chance to stake for that behind ultimately whoever we sign to replace Hart and Bain, presumably. If not, I can easily see him being another loan out. At that age, it's about getting game time for keepers, and the Austrian second division is probably as good as anywhere. Or if it could be an SPFL or a championship loan, I think you got to give him a chance. Some of his stats weren't too bad. His claiming, his sweeping, his distribution, there was some things to like there, but it's a very small sample size. So still want to see a bit more of him before I'd be punting him for sure.
Yeah, for me, I'd be keeping him. If he's under contract, we keep him. But I want to see him on loan within the Scottish Premiership. So whether he goes out to a Dundee or a Dundee United, did they come up? I think they did. Or, he goes to someone like a St Johnstone or something like that and just gets a run of games. I would like to see him in our league, because only having seen him, he's got this big reputation on him, but having seen him only in the B team games and then in pre-season and everything like that, I don't know. I think there's a player there, but we need to see him actually in the top flight in Scotland to see what we've got.
Part of me thinks that might have been the plan this season on loan in Austria, and then potentially, if you re-sign him, bring him back and play him in sort of one of the, first or second top, division here in Scotland. But I wonder whether the injury, I mean, he only played a handful of games, so I wonder whether that set things back a little bit, and whether they're interested in maybe sending him back out that way or somewhere else, and maybe giving him a bit of a chance to work back up to a top flight gig.
Yep, 100%. So let's bring up some comments here. RL77, the loan players aren't good enough. Out on loan for a reason. Won't trouble the first team level we should be aiming at. Understand that, but there's always a reason. You need to keep some squad depth and all that sort of thing. McLaughlin P saying I sent Quan back to St Mirren. Maestro saying Kelmac was on loan, put out on loan years back to Notts County. And then so was Aya when he was on loan. So the loan market can actually work for players. So it's a matter of, just because they went on loan, I'm not putting a line through every single player on this list. There's probably about 5 of them that I think could potentially be something for us long term, but not right now. So the next one is Matthew Anderson. He's a left back, if my memory is right, who was also at Admira Wacker in Austria. Same deal as Oluwayemi for him. Bring him back, but then put him on loan at either send him out on loan to Bruni's team at Air United, or get him into a lower level SPFL team. Anything you want to add there, Dan?
No, about the same.
Next one's Bosun Lawwell. I want to see him in pre-season. There's a player with a lot of upside, defensive midfielder, not as a centre back. So yeah, I want to see him get a chance.
100%. He's, as you said, he's a box-to-box midfielder. He's built for that. He's not a centre half. He's big, strong, strapping young lad. He's 6'3". He flourished in that advanced position. His ball carrying, his passing, his creativity. There's enough there. I thought, he's great in the air. He's strong in terms of his touches, his dribbling, his touches in the box. he is very athletic, high ceiling, great player, great potential player, I should say. If he's not ready, an SPFL or an English Championship loan for me. But as you said, you'd probably want to see him through the mid-season and through the preseason. And, we've got, pending what happens with O'Reilly, but we've got a lot of guys vying for those sort of three roles that are going to play through the middle. And obviously, he's going to play a lot deeper than them, but than O'Reilly at least. But if he fits into the plans, if you're looking at defensive midfield, is it him? Is it Quan? Who's ready to make an impact now? Who's not? The one that's not goes out on loan. The one that is stays.
Yep.
I think you can make a case depending on what happens in preseason.
Yep, 100%. We're going to look at it and go, who's going to be. I said before, I don't want to see Chinwag playing in the 6. I want to see Awada. I want to see, and then who's the backup for Awada in that 6 spot? Is it going to be Lowell? Is it going to be Quan? Are we going to sign someone else for that position like Amadi that we've been linked with? I want to see us strengthen with some big bodies there. So, yeah, I think the things need to see him in preseason to make a decision on where will he best be suited. Will he be better off staying with us for this season, going on loan in the SPFL, going on loan in English Championship, like you said? So, it'll be an interesting one. I'm going to lump 2 players together. So, Ben McPherson and Mackenzie Cars. They're both at Queen's Park. I'd loan them back there again for another year if they're under contract. If they're out of contract and they want to leave, so be it, whatever. But those 2 are too good for our B team, but not quite good enough to even be a squad player in our first team. So they're better off out there if they're under contract with us, getting games. Otherwise, yeah, I don't see much of a long-term future there.
Yeah, look, I've liked the look of Cast for a long time, and he's only 20, so there's another couple of years before I think you have to make a verdict that he's not up to the standard. He's got another year to run on his deal, from what I understand. But just looking sort of, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I was watching a lot of Queen's Park games, but from what I've sort of read and seen, he struggled to make much of an impact. Didn't get a lot of game time. I think he was mostly used off the bench. So I'm not sure that Cast is up to it. McPherson, I know he looked okay from what I remember in those sort of early preseason games. Had a lot more of a role for Queen's Park from what I understand, although I don't think it was a great season for them. So, but from what I understand, he is out of contract. So it'll be interesting to see whether they're interested in extending his contract. I don't see why you wouldn't if it was sort of a 1 to 2 year extension. I think 20, if they've made it to this level and they're not so bad that we're punting them, the growth from 20 to 21, 22, I think, there's an opportunity there to see players develop without writing them off. So I'd be happy to keep him around and even potentially loan him out in a similar move again. But, if you were telling me I had to make a call right now, then you probably wouldn't bother offering him a contract. But if I was to have another 2 years to watch him develop, and say the first year of that could be at a championship club or a low SPFL club, then I'd probably be interested in that. There's some things to like there, more attacking than defensive, but I think that's a different type of player than what. You don't need a highly attacking fullback at Queen's Park as much as they'll flourish at Celtic. Let's be honest. They're probably looking for someone to, get down and dirty and do that defensive work. Whereas he ranks highly in a lot of the more attacking statistics, your crosses, your dribbles, your progressive runs, accurate passes. Yeah. So it's possible that playing in a Celtic system might be more beneficial than looking for another club that's, going to be fighting in the muck.
Just come up with an idea for Mackenzie Cass in particular. Loan him out to Lenny. Rather than putting him in the second tier of Scottish football, send him to Lenny for a season.
Don't see why not. What's the standard of Romanian football like these days?
Well, I don't know. Can't be much worse. Well, we played against Romanian teams in the Champions League, qualifiers and that over the years, and they seem to be pretty decent. So
Romania looked all right
Yeah.
The Euro. They looked a lot better than Scotland anyway. So
just a random idea. Send him and possibly Stephen Welsh there. There you go.
yeah, I don't hate it.
Next one on the list, Liam Shaw. I think he's out of contract. Either that or he's got 1 year left. No matter what happens, he's got no future at the club, so he's looking to sell him.
Kind of crazy when you remember I think it was just before Postecoglou, but we had Liam Shaw and Asaze Hagide both come in from Sheffield Wednesday, and it's like
the first two players announced once Ange had signed that bit of paperwork and was in hotel quarantine at the time.
Yeah. Shaw managed 16 minutes of action before being loaned out to Motherwell, and then he was at Morecambe before joining Wigan. It's not up to standard, let's be honest. See you later. You won't be missed.
Next one on the list is Adam Montgomery. For me, I'd be keeping him for two reasons. One, until we know what we're signing as a starting European level left back, we need to have someone there who can back up in that position other than Taylor. So we need someone for that role. And number two, European quota, he counts as homegrown, which will help us for ticking that box over there. That's the only reason I keep him. It makes zero real sense. I don't see him as a regular first-team player for us. It's more, we'll keep you, use you for the first 6 months of the season to tick a few boxes and everything, and then we can loan you second half of the season again if need be, or sell you.
It's interesting, and I get it. You're always got to be, as someone who plays a lot of Football Manager, you've always got to be on top of that homegrown player quota. It can be a real sneaky pain in the butt if you're a little too focused on signing players. I remember some reasonably good raps on Adam Montgomery. I think he was on loan at St Johnstone and looked all right. It's clearly struggled since then. I know he wound up at Motherwell, and I think he got a pretty serious injury, and that was about it. He did get that contract extension through to next season, but I don't know. I talked about, not wanting to write off 20, 21-year-olds, but at 22, 23, 24, are you making that impact, or are you, are you stopping someone coming through? If there's someone better, see you later. If you're willing to trust a graduate or a B team player coming through, I'd be happy to move him on. If you're not, if your Frames and Andersons aren't ready to step in, then, I wouldn't be mortally wounded if we kept Adam Montgomery.
I'm just going to bring up a comment from Strangelove here. So Celtic just signed 9 youth players to their first professional contracts yesterday too. Good luck to the youngsters. 5 of them go to school with my daughter, and she says they are nice lads, if a bit thick. One of them's Charlie Mulgrew's son.
Well, a bit thick sounds about right.
McLaughlin P says, is it true that Kyogo was stood with a microphone after the Kobe Uwara game, saying that he'll remain in Europe for the time being? That's pretty much how it is. So it's decent.
I think he also pledged to score more goals, so we're going to have to hold him to that.
Good.
And he's out there pledging.
Next comment here from Maestro. Head of recruitment and scouting system needs sorted first. Whatever happened to Mitchell Frame? He got injured and he's apparently back training with about 2 weeks to go in the season. So get a full preseason into him and have a look at him as well. So, yeah, I'll definitely rate him as well. Michael Ross is saying Kelly deserves some first-team action. Yep.
Agreed wholeheartedly.
Andrew Galea saying send some young blokes out to Australia, good league, play the season and return to Scotland. Well, look at the other guys who are coming from the A-League and going to play over in Scotland, like the guys who went to St Mirren like Bacchus and then if you look at Cammy Devlin at Hearts and all the guys that are over there, Newan Hoff and these blokes, they weren't even star players in their team. They're good quality over here. Just run-of-the-mill players here, and they're decent over in their Hearts team. So, yeah, I like the idea. It'd be worth sending some out, but the matter partner up with a club and, try and work it out from there.
Maybe Ben Seagrath's new club.
Not the Smurfs, please.
The problem, the only downside, and look, I think that's right. Australian football and Scottish football have in common a lot more than they don't in terms of tactical level and technical ability, and the focus on the athleticism and the agricultural nature of some of the football. It's very different in terms of fitness and conditions. We've got games over here where you could be playing in 35 plus degrees in the middle of sunny afternoons. You want to be making sure that you're not sending players out here that aren't going to be prepared for that or aren't going to be able to cop that and then go back and play in very different conditions.
Here's one for the commenters. Do you guys remember Ziggy Gordon, who was at Hamilton Accies? He moved out to, I think it was Central Coast over here for a couple of years. And he actually said after his second or third game, where they kicked off and it was 38 degrees. And by the end of the game, it was only 35. He came and said, I felt like I was about to explode and I was melting from the inside during the game. So that's saying something. The other thing you got to look at is if you send players from Scotland over to the A-League, the problem you got to remember is each A-League club has only allowed 5 international players who aren't Australian or New Zealand citizens. So if you can get an experienced professional, 30-year-old professional who's going to be a guaranteed regular starter, and you know what you're going to get week in, week out, every single week, like to play in your team every single week, or you can get a 20-year-old young kid from Scotland, which manager is going to take the kid over the experienced one who's going to help them, keep their job? Because we constantly joke in the A-League about the recycle. Anytime a club signs a player and they've been another club, you look in the comments on the Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and there's always people putting the recycling logos because they just bounce from club to club to club to club. So that's a whole nother factor as well with the A-League if you're going to bring players over here. But I would love to see it, but I don't think it would happen.
Yeah, it's a bit of a closed shop sometimes, the A-League, when it comes to those players that managers trust. Oh, it's a bit of a closed shop with managers too, let's be honest. So I'm not sure it'll work, but I like the fact that, and I know it's something you spoke about quite a while ago, Jared, you see it might not be the best time to be looking at the Citigroup model with the charges laid, but the model of having clubs in different markets and different leagues around the world, we're clearly open to that in some level. We spoke about the boys at Admira Wacker in Austria. I have to imagine, and obviously I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm watching a bunch of Austrian second-tier football. It's just not happening. I watch too much football as it is. My wife's about to pop a second kid out at any point, so the amount of football I'm watching is going to drastically decrease. But the club have shown some interest in, tying up and having these arrangements with clubs abroad and utilising them. So I thought Anderson had a good season out there from what I've seen. So if there's interest in that, it's clearly more beneficial than putting these guys in the Highland League. It's not the solution. It's the system that we're stuck with at the moment because of the way Scottish football is. But it's not sustainable. It's not long-term for me. And it's certainly not the way that we're going to develop first-team footballers, let's be honest.
There's a comment from Andrew Galea that I've got on the screen here saying Celtic could afford an A-League club. We definitely could. And the thing is, the multi-club systems or whatever, like the Citigroup, I want to do a bit of a dive into that at some point over the off-season and have a look at seeing how we could work. Because I'll constantly say, I'd love to have a green and white group. So if it's not all the same owners, but it's a group of clubs who are all pulling in the same direction. So you'd have like us, FC Groningen, and then you'd go through and find a couple of other clubs that are same sort of color schemes and do that, and just they just loan players within the group to each other and work on it like that. It would be amazing. I'd love to see something like that come to fruition. But I put Werder Bremen in there as well for a German team. If you had those three, it's a good little setup. I don't mind that. But anyway, we'll get back to the rest of the loan players and rattle through them. Ben Summers, good player. I think he's basically the level below Kelly. So I would be keeping him, put him on loan for another 12 months.
Yep, got some talent. We've got him on contract till 2026, I think. So I think there's some belief and some faith in him. He's 19. No rush. Happy to loan him out locally.
We'll go Quan. I would loan him back to St Mirren again. I'll get to the point where we make a decision. Is it going to be him or Lowell or Bosun Lowell staying around the squad, and the other one goes on loan? It's pretty simple for me. So I wouldn't mind if he doesn't stay with us. He goes to St Mirren for another year. I've spoken about sending all our Korean boys to St Mirren. So Quan and Yang. Looks like O's off to Belgium. So yeah, I'd be loaning him out again. If he's not going to be a regular, then loan him out.
100%. I think he was pretty popular at St Mirren too. He was making a big impact at one point there. So if they want him, I'd love to see him get another season there and play a full season in the SPFL for sure.
Bit of a cult hero, and the St Mirren fans loved his Lego hair. Next one on the list here is Marco Tilio. For me, I don't want him to be in the A-League next year. He's either going to come over to a full preseason at Celtic, show he's got something there, and break into the first team squad. He won't start, but be in the squad. Or we loan him. If we can't sell him, we loan him and keep him either within Scotland or, say, a Belgium or a Holland or something like that on loan. Like the club I just mentioned before, FC Groningen, I think that'd be a great loan place for him if he doesn't break into our first team.
100%. I'm with you. I don't want to see him come back to Australia. Too many players from the A-League go and sign for a European club and come back really quickly. And I know there was probably a little bit more going on behind the scenes for Marco than just wanting to come home. But if he's not going to make the grade at Celtic, yeah, the need to cut your losses. And we did pay a decent fee for him too, from what I remember. Or loan him within Europe. There's a player there. He's been a player there since he was a young fella coming through the Sydney system. I was really, really upset when Sydney lost him within the A-League, but to see him to go to Scotland, I thought there was a real opportunity for a player to do well. And I think we've all said it, but Celtic, Celtic are thriving when they've got a good Aussie in the side. So I'd love it for that to be Tilio, but I'm just not sure. The injury issues, the other issues, I'm not sure.
That's it. I'm doubling down. Get
Tiara
fit.
top.
Celtic. The Tiara round 2. If he breaks in at Celtic next season, the Tiara will not be worn again. If he doesn't break in, and he goes on loan, he's going to be a regular in the first team if he stays in Scotland on loan. If he comes back to the A-League, that's my out clause. I was waiting for your comment, Robert. Tilio shit the bed, he's a midget and shot to boot. You left out the Sabedio comments, mate. Is there anything missing? Yeah, Andrew's saying here, Tilio's a good player, but he has to get stuck in and have a crack. Yeah, just hope he's healthy first. That's the issue above all else for me. He needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
Next one, Said Haksabanovic. Hooroo, jog on, not needed, see you later. Apparently there's a club in Italy after him, and we might make a little bit of a profit on that. So, goodbye. Good riddance.
If we made a profit, great. If not, I don't really care. See you later. The slagging off, the whinging your way out. Fuck off.
Yep. Mikey Johnson, see you later. You played well at West Brom. He's pretty much strike while the iron's hot and sell him.
Yeah, his stock's never going to be higher. I've seen him thrown up as a potential make weight in a deal to get Adam Ida. That'd be great. West Brom, that'd be great. I don't care. If you got a club that'll pay 4, 5, 6 mil for him, then you have to cash in for sure. Johnny
Kenny, Shamrock Rovers. I don't think he's ever going to make it at Celtic. Let's be honest.
Got my doubts. He made the league team of the season, I think, in Ireland. There's something there. I'm just not sure whether he's good enough for a Scottish Premiership side, particularly for Celtic. I'd like to see him. He'd be another candidate for me for a loan within Scotland.
Send him to Ross County. Send him up.
What's your basis for that? Why them in particular?
Well, they struggle to attract top talent and senior pros. And, well, that's send him on the Jackson Irvine path. Go from Celtic youth, go on loan up to the Highlands for a year or two, see how he goes. And then what's the worst case scenario? It doesn't work for him and his contract's up. See you later. Best case scenario, he does well there. And we can sell him off from there if he's not going to break in. So, I think Ross County could be a move for him.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all.
And then the last one on the list, Josh Clark went as an emergency loan to Ayr United when Bruni needed a keeper, so I'd send him there for a whole season.
Yeah, why not? I think he made 12 appearances, 13 appearances, something like that. The short spell looked good. The feedback from what I gather was quite good. He is another one that's out of contract though, or was out of contract at the end of the season. So I'm not sure whether that's something that we've worked to sort out. But if there's enough there to keep him, then yeah, Ayr United, off you go, make a season out of it.
Yep. So Michael Ross is saying Jared's going to wear a tutu this time. Don't tempt me, mate. That's all I have to say. Don't tempt me. My wife will try to kibosh that. Don't tempt me. And then you've got McLaughlin saying, bye-bye, Haxer piped up too much last August. Andrew's saying, got to cash in on MJ. RL77, Haxer should probably just pursue his career as a rapper. And then we got bring Kenny to another SPFL club. And then talking about Jackson, all the way to the Bundesliga, go Jacko. Yep.
I've ordered a St. Pauli shirt too, just quietly. So
you strange man. No,
football hipster, man.
Look
football
at the
hipster
beard.
101.
Look at that beard. Does that even shock me?
That's the St. Pauli beard, right?
He's spot on. Anything missing is your little like cab driver cap. Some
Don't
Paulie shirt, your beard, and a little cab driver cap. You're laughing. Oh, there we go. Close
got
enough.
Got me little beige beanie. That'll do.
That'll do the job. Perfect. So, next thing we wanted to chat about was they were talking about on Axon the last couple of days about which players we should be looking to move on and the expected amount we might raise if we were to sell them all. So, I found it a little funny, not because of the amounts, but it was like I did not think about this at all. So, they were saying that we get £1 million for the sell-on for Giakoumakis. If Frimpong gets sold, we get 7 million, roughly, for their sell-on. Haksabanovic goes for 1.8 million. Vlagabelka goes for, say, 2 million. Mikey Johnson goes for a conservative 3 to 4 million. O goes for 4.2 million. We've got the money coming in for the Barter for 10 million. And then with nominal fees for Tilio and Kobayashi, who are also apparently on their way out, that would bring in 30 million on top of the money we already have. And then they were talking about that means that if we've got 30 million coming in, and say if we were to spend 36 million gross spend, we're only really spending 6 million out of pocket, and we could possibly keep O'Reilly if we wanted to. That is pretty much out there. So that's the numbers they're talking about. For me, I just wanted to go through those players. What do you think of those numbers, Dan? Do you think they're achievable?
I mean, none of them. Sorry, go ahead.
Because the way I'm looking at it is I think those players, if we sell them, will be great. We need to move on from the players. It's ridiculous that we'd get that much money coming into the club. We're getting how much for Champions League next season? Like 40 million. We already have 70 something in the bank. Then you get another 30. So that brings you, there's 70 million from sales and from Champions League. There's 140 million. That's before O'Reilly goes anywhere for a league and club record. So you're looking at around 140 million in the bank. I think we're going to come out of this looking at it with a net, like we'll probably spend less than 10 million out of our club's pockets. So if we were to go and sign all the quality players we need, starting level goalkeeper, starting left back, another centre back in particular, and another striker, you bring in those 4 players at 9 million each. There's 36 million for starting level European quality players. And then if we bring in that 30, then we're only out of pocket 6 million. I think Peter Lawwell will be getting a bit of a boner over that. What are your thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, I can see him. I can see him liking the figures, and I think that's the way you know, playing devil's advocate. That's almost the way you'd have to sell it to him and the board, and saying, look, well, we're really, you know, we're only spending a little bit. Bo select. Oh, hang on. I just saw my name and I was like, I'm drawn to my name like a magnet. I saw my name in the comments. I was like, hang on, who's having a crack? I stopped reading after he said Dan's a good guy. So whatever else he said, when there's a but, it's no, I don't want to know.
Everything before the but is bullshit. Everyone should know that saying.
Unless it's nice, then you stop there and don't worry about it. Yeah, look, we're not going to spend, even as you said, it's reasonable to say, all right, well, 4 players at 8 to 9 million, it's workable. I'm not sure we're going to spend that. We seem to be haggling over price. Last I saw, there was sort of an agreement on price around 3.5 million for Bernardo. That was the reporting. But now I'm seeing there's, you know, we can't come to terms with his. We're concerned over coming to terms on wages, and it's like, are his wages that high at? I don't even know who Bo Selector is. So sorry, he's just totally got. I don't know who Bo Selector is. I'm gonna have to Google that afterward because I'm sure it's that.
I only know that from Ali G saying it back in the day.
Oh, geez, you've aged yourself there.
I don't care.
Kids, Google Ali G. I'm not sure. You know, some of the players we're linked with a lot of free agents. You know, the goalkeeping stocks. We've been linked to guys like Dubravka, who massive wages at Newcastle, but if he come on a free. I'm not so sure that we're going to see good level investment, but I think we should see, if you're saying, and I don't think any of that sort of 20 to 30 million from those sales was crazy when you look at the figures. You know, it's reasonable to think you could eke 1.5, 2 million for someone like Lagerbielke, given, yes, he had a terrible season here or you know, fucking nothing season here, but there were multiple clubs in Italy that were, you know, rumored to be interested. So you'd have to think you could get a decent little fee for him. There's a couple other guys there, nominal fees, you know, we'll make a few quid. We're not in the position where we're haggling over a, you know, a couple of $100,000 tribunal fee for Conor Barron at least. So the money's there. It's just I've been burnt too many times with crappy budget, you know, middle of the range budget signings rather than that 3 to 4 high quality players that I think we could really use.
Yeah, so off the back of that and what you're saying, Dan, is I'm going to bring up a comment here from Strangelove. I felt we had a reliable group of around 16 first-team players. Everyone else can go. Let's trim the squad, then target the players we want rather than just taking frees or other clubs' squad chaff. On that, that's going to tie into the next thing I was wanting to talk about, which was I think that us as a fan base, we're going to need to show some patience to get the right players in rather than just getting fast signings done that don't fit what we actually need 100%, which is pretty much what Strangelove was saying there. So I'd rather us take our time. Yes, the window's just open. The biggest task for us as a club is going to be identifying the right player that fits the way we want to play with the wage and the transfer fee, so everything lines up, right? And then that's for incomings. But the biggest issue is going to be getting those other guys out the door. We've got such a bloated squad that we need to move guys on, if James McCarthy moves on, Shane is dodged a bullet because he's already promised that at the end of this transfer window, if McCarthy is still at the club, he's buying next season's home shirt, McCarthy 16 on the back. So
I have to think there's going to be a moment in the Celtic shop when they get that order and they say, sorry, just triple check that. Just make sure someone is ordering a McCarthy shirt.
I honestly reckon that will happen too. They'll be like, are you sure? Are you 100% sure? So, yeah, they're going to be like, you know how when you like log into your emails or something, you got two-factor authentication? They're going to have some sort of two-factor authentication pop up on the printing press to put the name and number and everything on. Like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? Like, really? 100%? So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. So, yeah, it's going to be all about clearing players out before we bring players in. But as Andrew Galea is saying, player like Harry Suter, surely we can afford the wages of a Leicester player who didn't get a game last season. He's big, which Brendan likes, so it could possibly happen. And then McLaughlin's saying we're going to have a net profit of 20 million before we've even bought a player at this rate, and that's pretty much what that was all about. RL77, heated driveways all round, lads. Happy days. And then Robert Gibson was like 140 mil in the bank. Peter Law would have a boner a dog couldn't chew through. Just the thought of it. Had to bring that up because I wanted to see Dan's reaction.
Jesus, there's a visual.
And then Andrew's saying we can make money if we sell one of the Japanese players. Oh, yeah. Which one? Kobayashi. Take Kobayashi. That's the one.
We're not making money selling Kobayashi. I'll tell you that.
We'll just tell them it's Kyogo and send them.
They all look the same card, you reckon? You can probably get away with that.
That's not what I'm saying.
Some parts of Britain, you could definitely get away with that. You look at some Brexit voting, maybe. I think you get away with that for sure.
That's where I was going to go. I'm saying I'm not saying it's us. I'm saying we're Scottish League. People in England probably won't look and be like, yeah, he's Japanese. That'll do. And think it's the right player. That's what I'm referring to. There's the brain capacity of certain areas. A club like Ipswich Town coming up into the Premier League. There you go. That's one that won't know the difference.
I don't know if it was real, but I remember. And look, apologies in the comments if anyone voted for Brexit, but I am going to make fun of you. Someone overlaid a map, and it was like the areas that predominantly voted for Brexit, and then it was almost identical to a map areas impacted by heavy lead poisoning over 30 or 40 years or something. And it was like almost identical, and I'm like, there's something in that. I don't know, but maybe use that map and say, well, look, that's a club. The Grimsby is the perfect example. There you go, from Shimarak, Grimsby. A Japanese is a Japanese. They don't know who, what, where, or how for sure.
Yeah.
God, I hope 100%. That doesn't get clipped and taken out of context. I'm going to sound fucking horrible, aren't I?
Dan's in trouble, everyone.
I'm not racist, everyone. Just in case.
Off to the naughty corner. Anyway,
I'm not racist. Remember, I like Vietnamese people in particular.
So we're talking about we need to clear the players out, and we need to take our time to get the right players in. And I want to know, Dan, your thoughts on this, because for me, I think there's very little wiggle room for any errors in this season's transfer window. Like last year's off-season one was a nightmare. Not really any of them really broke into the squad and established themselves. So I think we need to make sure that we don't have two bad off-season transfer windows back-to-back, or make it three, because Ange's last one wasn't that great. So three bad off-season transfer windows in a row, because we also have last season's poor form with the squad, and then we've also got the extended and reconfigured Champions League this season. So Brendan uses that word quality. So we need to get a better quality of player playing, so the team is playing a better standard of football, in my opinion. So there's not much room for error. We need to make sure we get it right. And that's why I said 4 players, 8 to 9 million. If we can spend that and really strengthen that squad so that a guy comes in at left back, he's better than Greg Taylor. So Greg Taylor drops to the bench. That makes our squad stronger. Someone comes in over the top of Scales drops to the bench. Now, last season's starter is on the bench. Perfect. stronger again. And we just need to strengthen like that. So for me, we need to be careful. We need to be patient. We need to make sure we don't have these errors. What are your thoughts on that, Dan? And what do you have to add to that?
No, you're 100% right. That's why I'm not freaking out that we're not rushing out making signings or agreeing pre-contracts like, certain other clubs are, because we've got the ability to, I guess, make considered moves. No, I don't want us to wait till the last 5 minutes of the window, but if we're, some way through negotiation with those 3, 4, 5 key players that are, undoubtedly an improvement on what we've got, then that's fine by me. I'm not expecting a huge turnaround in terms of a squad turnover so much as I feel like we're at the start of a rebuild phase. It could take, 1 or 2, maybe even 3 windows to move on all the guys that we're put the pen through today, depending on their contracts and all that. Especially when you've got guys like Lagerbielke who come straight in, sign long-term contracts, and then the pen's through them straight away. Then there's no room, and if you can't get suitors, there's no room to move him. And it doesn't seem like that's going to be an issue with him in particular, but it's just the perfect example of the issue if you get it wrong, because we did pay, between him and Narochki, it was what, 8.5 million or something. That's, 2 potential project centre halves, one that might still turn out all right and one that we're prepared to cut loose already. Whereas, that could be a high quality starting left centre back for the next 2 or 3 seasons at the right price, as you said. And then that pushes Scales down, that pushes Welsh down, that pushes Narochki down, and it makes our squad stronger overall. So, yeah, I don't think I'm not going to get tied up in, we haven't signed 5, 6, 7 players. We haven't punted half the squad yet. There are certain players out there that I want. I've put up a number of little scouting reports on players on Twitter that I really like or that I've been keeping an eye on. I've made no secret. I'd love us to sign Scott McKenna. I know he's sort of one that always comes up. I just think he's the right fit. Sorry. Natural left footer, accomplished. He hits that homegrown quota.
He has a massive head. Look at him.
He does have a massive head. I'm not going to.
But look at him.
Jared, I've got a fucking massive head. I can't knock people for that. I've got to custom order my hats in a fucking suburb that's predominantly Polynesian guys who have massive heads. Like, I'm struggling here with this enormous fucking head. So I'm not going to slate a guy for that. I would like McKenna. I want to take a look at this new fella from Kazan or wherever it was supposedly been linked with. I don't even know I can't even say his fucking name. Not that one. No, there was a centre back we've been linked with. Okay. He'll come to me. By which I mean I'm looking for it right now. But no, it's going to take time. We're not going to turn everything around and change everything about the squad to be exactly what Brendan wants in one transfer window. Be nice if it happened, but it's not realistic. It doesn't happen like that. So I think we've got to be patient and let them work through the processes. What's this fucker's name?
If there's one thing that's good, it's that Mark Lawwell's not involved in the scouting. That's all I have to say. So Tosh, get out there and find us some quality. Andrew's saying that there's no quality without higher wages. Inner Hype is saying Mielski from Aberdeen, a striker. McLaughlin's saying, just get the feeling we'll get a left back and a goalkeeper on the cheap, then bring in 6 more projects. Better not. And then he's also said Dubravka for $1 million and McKenna at centre back for free. And we're supposed to be delighted with that. Yeah, I wouldn't be happy with that. I'll tell you that much. They'll be able to clip me raging on here.
So that might be worth it just for that.
And then you've got Strange Love's going to Andrew saying Tavernier and Goldson are among the highest earners in Scotland. Serco pay more in wages, so paying more isn't a sign of quality. They're trying to urgently cut £10 million off their wage bill too, because of the financial rules or whatever that have coming in. So for Europe, otherwise they're cooked. So good fun.
I think it's also for anyone with sort of any semblance of economics, the book. I don't know if you ever read the book "Why England Lose" and Other Football Phenomena Explained back in the day. Simon Cooper and Stefan Szymanski, I think it was. The correlation, Rangers losing is the delightful exception to the rule, but the correlation between wage spending and league wins is incredibly strong. And you're right. Whether we're paying transfer fees or not, if we want players that take us to the next level in Europe, they're going to command big fees and big wages. It's just how it works. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to have to pay money for them, and we're going to have to compensate them well. So I've got my eye on a young fella that's been out on loan at left back, though. It's Argentinian, Alexander Bernabe. I don't know if you've heard of him, but
I deliberately did not bring him up when we're going through the loan players, Dan, because I'm like, nah. The comments was already a little rowdy at that point, so I was like, nah.
That's why I'm throwing it in there. I just every now and then I just like to throw some bread to the ducks and see what happens, you know.
Now I've got to bring some comments up here. So Mahesh has made a comment about Tavernier, saying, to be fair to Tavernier, based on his career data, probably the best player in Scotland along with Kelmack, but his best days are behind him. And Strangelover's response, come on, if ever a player has benefited from stat padding, it's Tav, right? And he's followed it up with, come on now, Tav is to stats what push-up bras are to tits. I think that's the best comment I think I've ever seen in the live chat on this podcast ever. So
yeah, I'll pay that. That's a quality statement. And I get it, Mahesh. Like, yeah, he's been a decent player. I'm not going to absolutely say bullshit, but also fuck him, fuck them, fuck the Huns.
100%. So the last thing I'm going to say on this, while we're talking about getting the better players in, is if we get our transfers right this off-season, for me, I think this is a launching pad for us into another period of sustained success. You look at what they're bringing in at Ibrox, Freeze, young kids from, AC Milan, this sort of stuff, who's the next Calvin Bassey sort of signing for them, and all these young kids who are going to be at Real Madrid in 4 years' time and this sort of stuff, right? They have to downsize and get younger and change. We have to strengthen and worry about ourselves. But the way I look at it is, if we get out, we're already 3 in a row. We get our recruitment right, that it can compete in Europe. The league will take care of itself. And this could be a launching pad for us to turn that 3 in a row to 6, 7, 8, 9, and potentially so on. I think we're in a spot where, we can just really, get Rangers on the ground and put the foot on the throat and crush it. So I don't know how you feel about that, Dan, but for me, I see this as such a big moment for us this off-season.
It sounds to me like what you're trying to say there, Jared, is yo ho ho ho, off we go. For it's 10 in a row. Brendan's here for 10 in a row. Let's do it.
Let's get KT in for 10 in a row too then. He'll probably be on a walking frame by then, but
let's get it happening. But I want more than Scotland. I want the 10, obviously, for very obvious reasons. But I am, I want progress in Europe. I want, I want us to be proud of the way the club's played in Europe, which hasn't been the case for a little while now, or a long while. And we're not, there are players that we need to sign. We can disagree on who they are, but I think there are some good players out there, and there are players that we can afford if we're willing to pay the money for it. I think we'd be disappointed if the club didn't.
Yep, 100%. So that's pretty much the pod wrapped up. Usually we'd end with a final thought, but I'm not going to do that. All I want to do is just leave the episode with a just say an RIP to John Keane, the saviour of Celtic in the 90s, who handed over that £1 million we needed to keep the club running 8 minutes. Basically, when his funds come through to the club going into receivership or administration, whatever it was. So, absolute hero. Everyone talks about Fergus, but John Keane also had a lot to do with it. So, RIP to him, condolences to his family. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back this time next week, unless we have some signings or outgoings, and we need to do a random spot up pod and just get on here and talk about it. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.